I think like moving forward in an authentic way, it's really,
Yes.
Like with social media and things, there are things you have to do, but also how can you put that lens and really just do the things that speak to you in an authentic way, and I think with this album and growing up in my career, I'm so much more confident and comfortable with who I am and the music I'm putting out. So I want everything to kind of come from that place too.
Welcome to the Release Day Series podcast. I'm your host, Alex Heward. Today I am excited to share a great conversation with contemporary roots singer-songwriter Mimi Obansewin. And we talk about her 6th studio album, Willow, that was released on March 3rd, 2023. An absolutely beautiful record. The songwriting is wonderful and the production is beautiful, and we talk about both of those topics. We also talk a little bit about being authentic in your release, so really approaching a single release or an album release in your marketing and your promotion in an authentic way that's really true to you. Some great insights, some great stories from Mimi. I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation. Remember, you can find all of our previous episodes on our website, releasedayseries.com. You can also find the limited video series on there. And don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter that comes out weekly or bi-weekly or really whenever it's ready. But the whole point is that you never miss an episode when it drops. All right, broadcasting from the traditional territory of the First Peoples of the Williams Treaties First Nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, Wendat, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This is my conversation with Mimi Obansewin. I've seen photos of where you record, and I'm looking at where you are right now. It's absolutely, like, you talked about it being cluttered before. It might be, but it looks beautiful. Where are you? What is this place?
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm sitting here on unceded Algonquin territory, also known as the Ottawa Valley. So we lived in Toronto for a long time, and we did a pandemic move to a little log home in the middle of the forest in the Ottawa Valley. And our home is our studios, our art space is our little sanctuary. So yeah, we have a lot of instruments and a lot of things, and my logs are just under 200 years old, so they're magical in their own right. So yeah, it feels really good here.
It looks incredible. Like I said, seeing you kind of sitting at your keyboard or at your computer and you're just surrounded by logs, and I'm like, this is where I want to be. This is what I would love to do. This looks so great.
Well, you're welcome to come visit. There's something about, like, I think I play a lot of wooden instruments, I realize, and my husband's a drummer, and we have all these instruments that are made out of wood, and I realize wood is like such a really powerful like texture when it comes to music. So to be in a structure that just, it has that energy, it just feels good. The moment we came here, I was like, yes, this is it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I mean, and you live off the land to an extent, right? You guys moved out there and you do a lot of foraging, even trading and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, as much as we can. It's really, it's a lot of work. But we have some gardens, so we do trade for some moose meat or some goat meat. And we grow, I'd say, about 50% of our vegetables, or all of our vegetables, but 50% of our food. I mean, I can't grow cheese or chocolate or coffee, so
it's a bit of work.
That's the challenge. Because we're on the road so much, we can't really do the animal thing. So food is like, growing food is my other passion, And it's interesting, like the link between music and food growing is really cool. But there's something really empowering about plants and living off the land as much as you can, even if you have like a balcony with some salad. It's really fun. It's really cool.
That's so awesome. We didn't go to that far. We used to live in the city. We didn't quite move to the point where where you guys did.
It's an extreme.
We're not really built for that mentally and physically. But we did move out of the city as well because we were just we ended up having our second kid, and the condo life was a little too cramped, so we also moved. So I feel you on that. The pandemic move, it was, I mean, I know we're not alone, but it was definitely necessary. But the album Willow is releasing this year. talk to me about the album. There's a lot. I feel a lot with the music in this, and I have a feeling that a lot of it has to do with, you know, your new surroundings as well, and obviously, you know, the things that you're looking back on. But I'll let you first talk to me about the album from you know, your end.
Oh yeah, well thanks, and let me know if I'm digging in too much. But Willow is my sixth album, which kind of blows my mind. But the last couple years, we really wanted to, again, that sustainability, self-sustainability thing was really important to me, especially as a young Indigenous Francophone woman working in the music industry. Like, I wanted to have a solid foundation. So we started working on gathering our gear and the skills we need to record ourselves. So when we moved here, it was like our home is our studio, and we have a studio in our living room. And I think because we're creating in a space that's our home, we can bring our universe. Like, we literally lived inside this album for an entire year. And so you eat lunch, you're living with it. It's part of your life. So I think for me, when I listen back now that it's done, I can really sense those like personal connections, the environment, our home, our universe, our thoughts, our spirits are really in this record. And I say our because my husband, Ryan Sherman, you know, is a co-producer and does all the engineering and mixing and everything, not only playing. So it's very much like, welcome to my world, you know.
Yeah.
And there's, I think it was like, I needed to do this record for a long time. So I feel really, really happy in my heart that it's coming, or that it's out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you talk about this sort of being like, if you're finding your sound, you're finding some, you know, the album that you really have been wanting to make. Can you expand on that a little bit, and that sort of feeling?
Yeah. I know it might be cliche. This is the album I always wanted to make. But I think like I carried these, I don't know if you want to say compositions, but it's like sounds and textures and feelings that I wanted to transfer into my music. I carried those with me for a long time. And I don't think I really set myself up to have that expression, that kind of lane where it's like, this is what I hear and feel, and how can I. So finally, you know, collecting the skills and working in my home with my husband, and, you know, like I finally got to express myself in that way. And it's such a healing process, such a release. Is like, this is the music that I've been hearing for so long. And it's not to say that I love all of my music. Whenever I do school workshops, they're like, what's your favorite album? I'm like, oh gosh, it's hard, you know, but it's a chapter of my life. And I think everything that I've done leading up to this moment, I really feel like we kind of brought it together for this record. So
yeah, absolutely. You can feel it. You can feel a lot within this. Because I mean, so Fiddleheads and Ferns, and sorry, I'm not sure in which the order they are, but I know that,
no, that's
you know,
great.
Fiddleheads and Ferns, you know, was your instrumental album.
Yeah.
And then Trilliums was another one of yours,
Yes.
obviously. And I feel like it's kind of like a melding of the two, right? I mean, you know, Trilliums is great in terms of your singing, songwriting, and then Fiddleheads and Ferns is your sort of exploration of the sounds.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of felt with this, was this kind of melding of the two projects to create, again, like you put on headphones. It's a headphone album. Like,
Come on.
You gotta put on headphones, and you gotta sit down. You gotta feel the environment, because you do a great job of capturing your environment around you, and just honestly feeling part of the instruments as well. And I think you get that from probably recording in, you know, your place. I mean, obviously putting the love and care into the album, but, you know, I'm sure that your environment really aided in creating that type of atmosphere as well.
Yeah, and I think, well, thank you. But I think my environment really crafted the person that I am. So I think about the land that I'm from. I think about my roots. I think about my family. These are things that are so important to me in my life. Therefore, they're important in my music. And so the fact that you can feel these things and draw these things, the environment is like, for a long time, I tried to separate, you know, artist me and person me. And it was like, but they are me. And this is my connection to this world is music. So to bring in my environment and all these things that I carry with me in music, it took me a long time to find the way to do it, I think. But over the last couple of records, and I have to say, like, thanks to my husband for creating this space for me to be able to do this and to encourage me to do it. Even, you know, looking back at my album Trillium, I never would have thought that I would be able to do like a live off the floor acoustic performance album. And that took so much courage. I remember like being like, I think it's time for me to do this, you know, and I was so scared. And that just, it opened a whole new universe. So, and same with Fiddleheads and Ferns. Like you said, the instrumental album. I love making music that is like a landscape, you know, and it's like, this is where I'm sitting, and I want you to come over and sit with me and feel it.
Totally. Well, and I think it's cool with Willow here is because like once Melting Time finishes, and maybe you could just hit replay, just start from the very beginning, because Nothing But Time, it blends beautifully into it. So it's almost like you just have this whole thing on. It's a great cycle, and I don't know if that was intentional.
But you know, 100%.
You kind of. Okay, great. Because you have the feeling, like, you know, of all of the chimes or just the sounds at the end of Melting Time that lead into Nothing But Time, and I think it's a great aesthetic of yours. You know, it is an environment. It's just a feeling, and I know a lot of people grasp for that or look to achieve that. You do.
Oh, thank you. You know, we really dug into this album and the production of it.
Yeah.
But all the instruments are instruments that live with us.
That's so
you know,
cool.
So everything's recorded real, everything's tangible, everything's like here and happening in real life, which, you know, I love electronic music and I love samples, but that just doesn't resonate with where my music comes from. So those are all things, but I'm really happy that you noticed the art, you know, and we spent a lot of time thinking about this album as an art piece. And I think in a world where people are doing singles and all these things, that's really awesome. And you have to do those things. But we wanted to make an art piece is like, this is my life right now, top to bottom, you know?
Yeah. And really, again, my takeaway was, you know, you recognizing you know, your surroundings, you taking an appreciation of everything that is before us, that came before you, that you're surrounded by. And, you know, that was kind of a big takeaway for me, was you seemingly recognizing these things and then writing them out and showing appreciation through the stories of each of the songs on the album.
That's really nice. Thank you so much for saying that and hearing those things, because you when you make an album like this, you know, it's like you're laying it all down, and somebody might pick up a seed here and there, but when somebody picks up the seed that kind of started it all, that's really cool. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love to just in terms of writing and writing this album, there's a lot of intuition as well. I mean, I know that's part of the process, but it's just like, it feels as well, you know, when I sit and listen to the way that you sing some of the songs, you know, how did some of the writing come together and the way that you decided to sing these songs? Was that a lot of you just kind of sitting there at a piano and feeling it come out? Is that, you know, what's your process?
I love that a piano is there, because there's like one instrument I wish we had was a big wooden piano.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess you don't have a piano, but yeah.
But no, that's really cool. You know what? So to give a bit of insight, I do workshops in schools with youth about songwriting, because for me, songwriting is not a technical way, you know, like there's definitely techniques and things you can do to improve, you know, different chord structures. But at the base of it, for me, it's story, it's heartbeat, so rhythm, and it's the voice. And if you have those three things, you can create a song, whether it's to empower yourself or for your own practice or to share on a stage. Like there's so many things, but if you have these things that are already built inside of you, you can create a song. And I think I like to share that because I think that's kind of how songwriting came to me. Like you said, it's very intuitive. And I like to just kind of tap into a moment rather than, I really want to write a song that has a riff like this. That's just not the approach that I have. Maybe in production a little bit, you know, there is always technical things, but writing songs is like, I hear something, or we're outside in the garden and I hear a bird and I'm like, tapped into this moment and kind of taken away for a second, and I come up with this melody or whatever it is, and then you kind of craft it afterwards. So and a lot of these songs I've carried with me for a long time. In fact, Willow is one of those songs that I've played at shows for probably 5-6 years, and everyone's like, you need to record this song. And I just was never ready to let go of it. And in fact, it was the hardest song to record, but it's the song that I've been playing the longest. And it's just one of those moments where it's so personal, and it's just, you don't want to let go, I guess. But yeah, songwriting, I do play a couple instruments. I play guitar and ukulele and my hand drum, but it's very much tapping into that, you know, some people describe it as a river. Some people describe it as like a out of body moment, but it's just kind of being in line with yourself. And I have to say the land plays a big role in that. Usually I'm outdoors. It just comes that way.
That's awesome. Walking bare feet, really feeling
yeah.
the Rick Rubin effect, eh? Just like always in bare feet outdoor. I would love to be in that space as well.
Yeah, but that's the power of music, right? Like I can listen to something and be transported somewhere, whether it's like a memory or it's somewhere I've never been. It can bring those elements to you, and I think that's why music is so powerful, because even if you're not here, you can still kind of feel that feeling that you have, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'd love to expand on Willow maybe just a little bit, because I think to your point, like, you know, being the longest, the song that you've had, maybe the longest, but you also talk about, opening up to yourself to record the way, being scared to record, live off the floor, but opening yourself up to that. That's what I really get from Willow. I think, what did I write here? Living in a more creative, carefree way and accepting who you are, and not what everybody thinks, not what you believe everybody wants you to be, right? Being able to move like a willow. How did that sort of analogy, the willow, come into, to play with this?
Yeah. So this song I wrote when I was like in my early 20s, and I think it was at the same time that I was learning about plant medicine. So on one hand, the willow tree, that's where we get aspirin from. It's like a painkiller, and it's a medicine. And I love willow trees. I've always loved them. But, if you have a headache, you can take white willow bark and it helps with your headache, and you can make tea. And so it's really interesting that the willow tree removes pain. And this song comes from those moments in your life where you're just not feeling good, and it helps with the healing. So I don't think I knew that when I wrote that song, but now having a willow tree, it blows my mind a little. I love the love that I have for music. But I remember sitting down and writing this song, and what I love about songwriting is that it forces you to be honest with yourself, because you can't write a song that doesn't resonate with you inside your soul. And I think this song is a song that I needed to write for myself. Is like looking in the mirror, being like, there's all these things happening, and you're you, and you have to just find your roots and heal that pain and express it through music. And it's always interesting that that's the song people love at concerts, because it's not a big song. It's not a big rhythm, solos, vocally. It's just real, I think, and it comes from that place. So, yeah, I remember, like, I think I was probably 22 or 23 when I wrote that, and I remember exactly where it was and how I was feeling, and I remember that every time I sing it.
Awesome. And talking a little bit about your roots there as well, Where My Roots Grow as another song off the album. Beautiful, beautiful song.
Oh, thanks.
And you also talk, you are Franco-Ontarian and Abenaki, which is an indigenous community. Is that from like in the Ottawa Valley area, or is this from where you were in Sudbury? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm First Nations, and Abenaki is, that's where I come from. And so I grew up in Sudbury, but my reserve is in Quebec. It's called Odanak. So I grew up outside of my community, and my entire family grew up in Sudbury. So, we have that disconnect, and that having to reclaim and return home, and having to relearn. And I mean, I have so much to learn still. but learning those things validates you. And the more you learn about your ancestors and where you come from, the more you understand yourself. So, carrying those two things, I grew up in a French community, being Franco-Ontarian. And then, I was like, wait, there's this whole part of me now, So yeah, it's really cool.
Did it take you some time to want to learn about that? Like,
Yeah.
were you kind of separated from that feeling? Because with the way that where my roots grow, and not to say that specifically about this, but I think it feels pretty well like that, right? I mean, it's about discovering who you are. So when did you feel like that it was time for you to discover more of your roots, what your background was?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was at the same time that I started doing music. Like, I had graduated high school and I was working on my first record, and it was like, this is what I'm doing now, like, this is my work. And it's also when I had this huge identity discovery, and where my roots grow, is very much based in Northern Ontario, because that's where I come from. That's the land that I know, but also acknowledging that, I also have another ancestral land. So rediscovering my roots and really digging in, I think it was like that coming of age, 18, 19, where you're like, I need to get to know myself. And of course it was difficult because I come from a family that we didn't talk about it. It wasn't a thing. Nobody knew anything. And other than like little tidbits of information, and that just didn't sit with me, and now, I see my aunts and uncles like coming to our community, and I have family there, and I can go there and hug my relatives, like, and to see my dad's generation coming there is so amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Thanks.
You feel that. I loved hearing that in the music, and then and it's also cool. I feel like it helped maybe discover your song Dream Walker. There's a lot that I've been discovering too in the power of dreams in the Aboriginal community. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of insane when you hear the stories of the dreams with visions that are, telling you, unfortunately, with the missing, murdered Indigenous women to spirits, right? Where you can discover these, you feel like you sense them, you can see where they are, and has led, to, in fact, finding some of, these people. Talk to me about Dreamwalker and bringing in the story of within that and grandmother.
Yeah. You know what? It comes from a couple conversations that I've had with elders from a bunch of different communities, and experiencing a sweat lodge when I was in Webequois First Nations, which is it's a remote community in Northern Ontario, and just having all these stories. And I think Dreamwalker comes from the act of decolonizing the way that I thought. It's like I always felt these things, this connection to the land, but I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't know how to name it. And then, when you're acknowledged and somebody explains it to you, you're like, oh, great. And it really, you have a switch in your mind, it's a decolonizing of the thought process. And I think dreams are a powerful tool, and you learn so much. And even like you say, like, finding people, learning things, even like I've heard stories of like war tactics using dreams. And it's a thing that we don't talk about in our society, and like a Western culture. But it doesn't mean that it's not amazing and powerful and important and real. So Dreamwalker comes from like acknowledging the fact that there's an entire reality where your spirit goes and experiences things and learns things and can bring it to this life to apply it. I've totally figured out how to do stuff in my dreams. And I was like, I woke up and I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing today. This is great. And it's really powerful. So it comes from that, but also I love magic. I love, energy. And so I wanted to bring a little bit of mysticism and a little bit of magic into that song too.
Well, it's part of who you are, right? I mean, it's part of your background, it's part of that community. And I think, again, like the whole album, just the stories you go into, the way that you you put things like you need to listen, and you got to sit down. You got to sit with the album. You got to sit there. You got to put the headphones on and go through them, because it is it's a wonderful journey. Last song I really kind of want to get into, Here's to the Women, because it's was your first single off of this album. It came out last year, and great song. Talk to me just more about why it was important to go in and sing about the important women that came before you. And I'd also love to know about who the women in the music video were. Because you mentioned, the importance of them, and the female director as well. So I'll stop there. Just, I'd just love to hear more about the song.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, for me, it comes from Here's to the Women. It's I have an enormous family. So it's acknowledging I'm a family person, and I have incredible women in my life. So for me, like, it started at that point. It was like, I need to thank the women. My mom is like incredible. My sister is going to change the world. She's amazing, and she's a great artist, and I grew up with both my grandmothers, and I have so many incredible women in my family, but also in my chosen family. I just have so many women, and I feel like they have a hand in making me who I am, I always say it takes a community to raise a musician. But it really takes like girl power to give me that energy to keep going, So it started at that point. It's like, this is my circle and these are my women. And then, it kind of grew from there, because there's a lot of incredible women music. Like, there's so many musicians and artists that I see at festivals or I listen to, and I'm like, this is so good. And I think we need to really support each other. And I think we do. So there's that. And then there's just women together. We are so powerful. And I just wanted to kind of, and it's like that one song on the album that's a little bit heavier, a little bit more pop. It just kind of has that like gritty energy, because I'm like, we rock.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put all that love and that pride that I have into a song. And then in the music video, so I put out a record in 2020 called Elle Danse, which was my first French album. And Elle Danse means she dances. And again, it was a very like feminine woman song, and a little bit more mystical. And in that video, it was me, my mom, and my sister dancing. And it was like cool. A COVID family project. It was great.
Right, the bubble video.
Yeah, it was like iPhone in our backyard, and it was great. But I didn't want to do that again. Although, like, I love my mom and my sister, I was like, we've done it. So I wanted to ask some amazing friends of mine that are just incredible women. So in the video, there's Amber Hine, who is from Pikwakanagan First Nations, which is next door to where we live. And when we moved here, we became good friends, and she is reclaiming hide tanning in her community, and she hunts moose, and she's an incredible person. So cool. I wanted to have her in there because she's a powerful person. And then my friend Miriam Gillane, and she's a friend that I've had for a long time, and if anybody, I'm putting this out there, if anybody needs a hype guy, Miriam is the best, because she's so supportive, and she comes to shows and she's like, That's
awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, thank you for coming and supporting my music for all these years. Do you want to be in my music video?
So cool. Of course.
Yeah. So it was really, really cool to kind of just jump into that.
Amazing. Yeah, great song, great
Thanks.
video, and just this again. I just love what I learned from you and through all these songs. And again, I don't mean to kind of gloss over in the other ones. I think there's a lot of important things to take away and from each of these songs. Don't Cast a Shadow is another one that really is like man, so good. So as you mentioned, you're living sort of, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it off the grid. You're living out, far away from a lot of people. Just how do you go about thinking about releasing an album when you're kind of like so far connected? Is that, I mean, because you put all this work in and you want people to hear it, obviously, and at the same time you're kind of like, well, I'm kind of living my life and being here, and I want to make music and live here, live off the land, and so when you start thinking about putting an album like this out, where do you start, and how did you learn to start from that point?
Yeah, I think it can be really intimidating these days because there's so much music and there's so much beautiful noise. I don't like noise, like in a bad way, you know? But early on in my career, my dad's an entrepreneur. And so he told me at the beginning, it was like, carry the guitar case and the briefcase. So you kind of have to learn a little bit of the business if you want to make art your life. And again, going back to that, like self-sustainability is how do you create art and dive into that, but also make it sustainable. So for me, I think it's compartmentalizing like both things. And this record was the first time that we've worked with a publicist. And so my team's really small. It's me and my husband and my publicist. And I have some people who do stuff, but like that's our team. That's our core team. And because we're so small, we can be flexible. So for this record, the publicist was the first time. And I think it's really important to think about, you know, not only the music, but how to move it forward, you know, like and that's the hard part actually, is like creating is fun, but how do you get it out there? And so I'm, you know, naturally a grassroots person. We tour a lot and we play a lot of grassroots, like, you know, we don't have like online fan. It's like these are people that I've met and I love them. So to maintain that aspect and to know my market and to do the things that, you know, reflect our brand in our music. So one of the first things we did was I sent mail outs. I love mailing things. I love snail mail. I love seed trades. I love sending seeds to people. So one of the ideas we did for my single, I Wish I Was a Farmer, is I got a whole bunch of people that have booked me or people that I've met at conferences or people that have bought CDs. Like I had a huge list of addresses. I asked people their address, so it's not like I sent it randomly. Yeah. And I had a little postcard that said, you know, I wish I was a farmer planting seeds for 2023, and it was a little thank you, a little postcard with a scan QR code with the single and a pack of seeds from our garden. And I sent them out to people and I handed them out at Folk Music Ontario, and I was like, can I give you some seeds, you know, and some music?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was really fun, and I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, that's awesome. Really, I mean, like tapping into who you are. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Who are you? You know, what do you represent, and you know, what are you trying to tell, and what? That's so cool.
I think like moving forward in an authentic way, it's really, you know, like with social media and things, there are things you have to do, but also how can you put that lens and really just do the things that speak to you in an authentic way, you know? And I think with this album and growing up in my career, I'm so much more confident and comfortable with who I am and the music I'm putting out. So I want everything to kind of come from that place too. So of course you gotta do the thing, but how can you do the thing with a little like personal twist, a little bit of that.
Yeah, authenticity, absolutely. Not to put you on the spot. Do you happen to know Craig Cardiff? He's
so I don't know him, but if he is listening, maybe he should know this. But like before the pandemic, I book all my own tours and everything. I've looked at so many of his posters to see where he was playing, so I could follow up and find gigs. So yeah, I know of him. I've looked at his stuff. But I've never met him.
No, that's hilarious. Well, I was just wondering if you knew like even just of his music or of him. So you do. Yeah. Okay. Great. I bring that up because he's the same kind of guy, grassroots. He's on social media. He does some great live streams and stuff. But again, to your point, the grassroots, really having that in person, like he sells out. Like it's not him in a big band, right? It's him playing his acoustic guitar at the venues that you're looking at, right? And I think that's hugely important as well to understand. You know, that is also still an approach. It's work, it's traveling, it's you know, it's not just getting social media famous or streaming numbers, you know, but I love that mentality and it works, you know. It does. It's just a lot, it's maybe a little more effort if I'm speaking correctly.
Totally. And you know what, it's a great point, and I think it's all about intention for me. So whether you're creating, and I say this in the workshops or what's the intention? And I think I learned that again from like decolonizing my way of thinking and learning about my roots, is putting intention into everything you do. If you're sending an email or you're writing a letter or whatever, it's, put some intention in there. And I was sitting in on a program. It was like, what does success look to you in the music industry? And I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a long week, because I want to make music. That's what I want to do. I want to have a long career where I'm creating music and I'm playing shows and I'm connecting to the world in that way. That's what I always wanted to do. So having that kind of focus and intention and putting that into like marketing and production and all these things, I think makes it maybe more wholesome, and it feels like you're achieving these goals. And of course, there's nothing wrong with having great streaming numbers and playing, big shows. And of course, those are goals, but also knowing that I want to do this for a really long time. That's the goal,
Awesome. I love that. And so
Thanks.
You talk about workshops. You teach workshops with students or?
Yeah. It started in schools, and then I've actually done it with grownups, which is so great.
Yeah.
And I've traveled up to some beautiful remote communities. My heart, I left my heart in Attawapiskat, where I was sent up to do some music. And so I do workshops in schools, and during the pandemic it was virtual, but now it's kind of coming back a little bit. But it's not like this is how we write a song. It's more like, why should we write a song? To feel good, and where does it come from? And at the end of a 1 hour session, we always write a song together and jam. I bring percussion. So whether it's like with kids or adults, it's always kind of the same conversation. And I think I didn't really have access to that in school growing up. So I feel like I really want people to not be afraid of creating music and songwriting, and feel like everyone should try it and can do it. It just depends on the lens you want to put on it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And again, sorry to draw the parallel, but Craig does the same thing.
Yeah.
Craig does workshops with students, and he's virtually doing things. So that's so awesome to hear you being part of the community.
Thanks.
That way as well. Well, Mimi, your album Willow is out there. People can go and get it and listen to it now. Again, take your time, sit down with this. It is so beautiful. I learned so much about you through this album, and I know that many other of the listeners and your fans will learn a lot more about you through this album as well. Best of luck on the rest of 2023 and your tours for the rest of the year as well. And thanks so much for talking to me on the Release Day Series podcast.
Uliuni, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
You can discover more podcast episodes as well as our limited video series on our website, www.releasedayseries.com. And if you'd like to support the show, we've added that option to the website as well. Send us $1, $3, $5, whatever you'd like. Any support helps. But most importantly, we appreciate you listening and sharing the podcast.